Hello, everybody. I'm Dustin, and I'm here with Brad Ellis doing a
Yo.
podcast together. What is this? It's nothing. I don't know. A few months ago, we said, hey, when One Piece live action comes out on Netflix, we got to talk about it. So this is what we're doing. We're just going to talk about live action One Piece for an hour or so, and that's it. But before we do that, Brad, we were talking. I just got my hair cut recently.
Mm-hmm.
Your hair's longer than mine. What's going on here? Are you joining the long hair gang?
No, my long hair journey was like when I was 19, 20, 21. I used to have really long hair, like down to here. I had long hair. Then I cut it and I was like, every man I feel like, or dude, or anyone, I guess, goes through the one long hair cycle.
Sure.
They got the one. I'm out of that way. No, the only thing I'm growing out is like I've cut it, but I'm growing out the back a little. Got a little mullet going on.
I like it. It's cool, dude. I think I cut a little more than not that I told him exactly what I wanted, but then when I saw it, I thought maybe I should have kept it a little bit, but my hair grows super fast.
That always happens.
It's no big deal.
You gotta wait like 2 weeks. 2 weeks is the sweet spot after.
Yeah, exactly. So, Brad, before we get into this completely, so I've not fully finished the anime yet. You are caught up, correct?
Correct.
So,
with the manga, yes.
I think that while we talk about this, there may be certain things that we talk about in reference to later on in the anime. I don't think we need to get into like full details, but if you're super sensitive, if you're extra super sensitive, you might not want to listen. But I don't think there are specific things I want to talk about, but nothing that we need to get into in depth. But so that's the warning there. So with that being said, Brad, we've both watched this, and you and I, we have not communicated at all about how we feel about it. And I think it's funny because you and I, even though I haven't finished, you and I in our respective communities are the One Piece guy. So, a lot of people saying like, what did you think of this? Did you like this? So, Brad, how did you feel? Like high level impressions about it. How do you feel?
I would say it was good. Like, let me explain why. Okay, so every anime adaptation I've ever seen has been garbage, absolutely terrible. I'm talking like Dragon Ball and stuff like that. Just
Dragon Ball Evolution,
horrible. I have problems with this show, but I think I enjoyed it overall more than I was expecting to. Like, I definitely felt like they respect the material a lot and they really like One Piece. And to me, it shows.
Yeah, I agree with that. It definitely felt like a lot of care was put into a lot of the elements. I agree with you. I enjoyed it way more than I expected to. And what's funny is the issues that I expected to have were around what the visuals were going to be like with, Luffy being a rubber man and, fishmen walking around. So I expected just it to be grotesque on a lot of levels. And I think that it was in some parts in particular.
Yes.
But I don't know if it was just that shock had worn off from seeing the trailers that I just kind of, I don't know, I had assimilated into what a little bit of the live action jank would look like. More so, my problems were some of the ways they did the adaptation in general. We can get into some of those specifics, but I was trying to explain it to somebody because it's obviously the best live action anime adaptation ever, without a doubt. But I also felt like at the same time, I also kind of felt like still like we didn't really need. I don't know if this was still a good idea,
Yeah. I was like, I saw it and I was like, okay, this is definitely still the worst way to experience this.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I would not recommend this to anyone over the manga or the anime. But if that's all you're going to do, then I guess.
Well, that's one of the big questions I've had thinking about this is that when Holly and I were watching it, I thought, what does someone who doesn't know anything about One Piece think about this?
Mm-hmm.
which I'm sure it's across the board depending on personal taste and stuff. But I was just thinking about someone seeing that the first time that you see the Gum Gum pistol when when Luffy's fighting Alvida, and I thought, oh no, like someone when they see this, like, what are they gonna? Where does it fit? Because some people may not have that gut reaction of like, oh, this is grotesque, from some seeing the anime and stuff like that. But some people might just, be totally cool with it.
My theory is that it's a mix for people between Pirates of the Caribbean and some Marvel stuff. See people kind of getting that vibe, them mixed together.
Yeah, I can.
Hideous in a lot of ways, particularly like I think of Arlong, dude. I'm like, oh, that's so good. But some of the stretching though. Yeah, dude, shout out! They did the big balloon Luffy though, where he reflected the cannonball, dude. That was a big baller move. I respected that.
Well, when he did that, right beforehand, they were shooting. It was Garp's ship, and they were shooting, the Going Merry. And Holly said, "Oh, they better have him throw the fucking balls." Like she was mad that he wasn't throwing the balls. And then they did it. And it was one of those moments where there are times in this show where you would expect an adaptation to say, no, we can't do that. We can't have a guy throwing cannonballs. It just will be too insane. But then they did it. And I thought, wow, they actually kind of pulled that off. It actually looked pretty awesome when he did that.
Yeah. They definitely do. Like, because One Piece is insane, It's like a lot of that stuff's not going to translate into live action. You think of like the snails, dude. These things are fucking hideous, dude. Like, disgusting alien creatures, but they went all out for it, so I gotta respect them doing that, because they could have easily just been like, that's too weird, we're using just normal phones or something like that. But they even showed him like feeding one of them or something with lettuce. I was like, all right.
So in terms of some of the visual effects, I'm curious what you think about my one theory here with I'm trying to remember, was this either episode 2 with Buggy? So one of the big changes in episode 2 is that Buggy's, all the stuff that goes down with him is in like a weird circus tent. And in the manga or anime, this kind of happens more out in the open, and it leans much more into this idea of Buggy being a clown with the whole circus thing. And I wasn't necessarily like annoyed by that change at all. My theory was just that they knew they had to go wild with Buggy because of his ability being the chop shop fruit, that it was going to look crazy. So I wonder if there's a thing that visually it's easier to make it look somewhat believable in the dark than if they were out in broad daylight.
I absolutely think that is the case. Because yes, you can hide probably some bad or awkward CG in the dark, and also I think a lot of it took place in the tent just because of budget. I feel like they're just cutting corners, like the whole Garp and Kobe thing. That feels like budget to me. A lot of that, saving some cash.
Let's get into that because I think that that's probably what I've seen is the number one complaint from One Piece fans is the fact that Garp and Kobe are all throughout this series, and to the point where they reveal things that aren't revealed for hundreds of episodes. Which, if you're listening to this, then you know that it's the fact that Garp is Luffy's grandpa. So was a very interesting decision to let the audience in on that so early on, but also just to keep them around during this. And this whole plot where Garp is trying to find Luffy and bring him in, and Kobe kind of, this again happens later in the anime, kind of becomes his like cadet in training, stuff like that, which you probably know more about that than I do. But go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I like laughed when Garp calls up Mihawk later, he's like, don't underestimate him or something like that about Luffy. And I'm like, bro, you're talking to Mihawk right now?
Yeah.
Mihawk is like one of the strongest characters we've seen, like, ever. It's so funny to me.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of where it's weird, because in some ways it's really, really faithful. And then other stuff like you said, when it's like Garp calling him up, and he's taken out the pirate that is like that whole sub arc in
Don Krieg, yeah.
Don Krieg, yeah. It was a moment where it's clear that they thought, oh, we got to have Don Krieg in here or people are going to be pissed. But instead, they just have him for literally less than a minute. He basically gets sliced.
Yeah.
And then what's weird, too, is that later is that they still had Sanji feed the guy that showed up. And I thought, oh, shit, is Don Krieg going to actually still show up? And then he just doesn't.
Nope. It's just that one scene showing that Sanji's a real good guy, actually.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Garp real quick. Garp, Kobe, and Helmeppo. I actually liked the actors that played them. I think they did a really good job.
Perfect. With the haircut, dude. Amazing.
I think they did a really good job with that, with those three characters. My criticism also is them just being involved in the show so much. Because, like, in the manga, they're just, like, gone for a long time. So it's way more impactful. Like, when Kobe, like, shows up to Syrup Island and stuff like that with Helmeppo meeting Luffy again, I'm like, it's been, like, 3 days or whatever, and you guys are already reuniting. It's supposed to be a very long time. But I guess, you know, they hired these actors and they're like, well, we just can't have them disappear for 10 years or something like that. So, I don't know.
Well, that's kind of leads into, I guess if we're getting some of the big negative stuff out of the way, one of the big things that Holly and I talked about when we watched this, that it seems subtle, but it actually really pissed both of us off, is that where the fuck is Hachi? Just no Hachi.
No Hachi, yeah.
And he's very important later on. You know? And they just totally, I don't know. I was trying to figure out, we were trying to think, like, what was the reason they didn't have Hachi? Is it that they didn't want to animate his arms because he's like an octopus type guy or a squid? Do they not think they're going to make it far enough that they just like don't care? Which the rest of the show doesn't indicate that. So what do you think about that? No Hachi. That was so shocking to me.
No Hachi's a bummer because, you know, he does come up later again. And it's just like, out of all the fishermen you could have cut, like, why do you cut Hachi, who has like the most narrative besides Arlong? Yeah. I was like, why? I don't get it.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I think it's weird.
And they showed, well, I guess it wasn't really an emphasis in Arlong Park in the anime or the manga, but they don't really, I think you see the Sun Pirate tattoo on one of them briefly, but they didn't, I don't know. It just seems like one of the big differences, I guess this goes with everything we've been saying as far as with Hachi and with Garp and Colby, that they're not sowing the seeds of the future of the show like the anime and the manga do, which is one of the reasons that I love One Piece, is that you see Hawkeye in the beginning of the show and then he just disappears for a very long time. And then when he shows back up, it's crazy, you know? So
yeah, I agree. It's like them filming it. They're like, well, we probably won't get to cover this actually. And it's like, it's kind of realistic because One Piece is like insanely long and still going. So it is, I understand that thinking, but at the same time, it's like, you should just plant those seeds there just in case things happen.
What do you think about our boy Shanks? Because this was one of the things that you and I talked about beforehand, is there was an image of Shanks with the straw hat on. And I think that overall Shanks was pretty cool in this.
Yeah, I think for me personally, Shanks is one of the hardest characters to do. Just because Shanks has like so much charisma, you can't really like imitate it. There's like something 1 in a million about that kind of guy, which is great because, you know, the role he plays in it. And the actor that played him, I think, did okay. Where I was like, all right, I'll buy him as Shanks. I'm cool with you being Shanks, but it's like you don't have the same charisma as him. But maybe down the line we'll get more from him. I did like that scene with him and Hawkeye, I guess, at the end where they're talking, because, you know, that does happen. And the wanted poster, all that stuff. But yeah.
Well, yeah, that's something that I was thinking, is that assumingly just recently, this may or may not be true, it's the rumor, is that they're ready. The scripts are ready for season 2 and they want to begin production, but they can't right now because of the strikes. And so it sounds like it could happen that this show will not just be a one-off season. They want to do more. But I thought about with season 2, are they just gonna not have Shanks in it? Are they just not gonna have Garp in it? Are they gonna be able to put these characters away? Because, dude, especially with Shanks, and I won't say how or when, but Shanks is gone at this point. Is that you see him talk? I maybe there's one other instance that he shows up with another character later on, but for the most part, he's like totally out until he eventually shows back up, and it's awesome because you haven't seen him. If you were watching it live, or if you're just watching it slowly like I was, it was like a year in between that you see him. So do you feel more concerned about, with the way we've seen things gone, I almost feel more concerned about future seasons.
I'm afraid. So One Piece as a series feels like it has too many characters for a television show. Most television shows, characters don't go away usually for that long. I think about, some shows have big casts, but I am afraid that they will not put characters away when they need to be put away for a long time. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Kobe and Garp, Helm are back again in the next season or whatever. It's like, you don't really need to show them. Shanks, you're right, you don't really need to show, but they might kind of tie some of the stuff with Luffy and all that stuff. Like, I will be actually upset if they have Shanks and Luffy meet or something like that again. I'd be like, dude, what are you doing? That'd be the worst possible thing.
Yeah.
But especially because the next season, we're going to have more characters coming in, new crew members. And like Chopper, it's like, what's the budget going to be on Chopper, dude? You can't mess Chopper up.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that. How will they do Chopper in a way that works? But I guess that's what we were saying before we saw anything of this show at all, is that we thought, how are they going to make Arlong work? How are they going to make, all these different things happen? But let's get into some of the portrayals of the different characters, because I think that overall, the casting of this show is one of the strongest aspects of it. And I will, let's just say the main crew right now, I actually felt like, and not that he was bad, but the least strong was Luffy, the actor that played Luffy. That he wasn't bad by any means, but something about it wasn't quite hitting as well as the other characters for me. How did you feel about him?
I mean, I saw like brief moments of the Luffy I know every now and then, but Luffy to me is so hard to replicate, especially his humor and his cadence, because it's so like wild and it's very cartoony, Luffy himself. And it's like, this is a live action, not just like his abilities that are cartoony, but his personality, I would say, like just him eating how he eats and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's a really hard person to portray. But I think he did okay. But he wasn't like the best, I'd say.
I think that one of the things that comes across the most strong to me in the anime is, and I guess this comes down to the voice acting, but Luffy is very silly and fun to the point that you think that he could almost never be serious. You would never be able to take him seriously. And then when, particularly in the show, like when he fights Arlong or something, he gets really serious and he sounds real tough. Not that he's the toughest guy ever, but it's very believable that he's mad and that he really, really cares in that moment. I felt like sometimes the actor felt like it sounded like a guy that was silly pretending to be tough. Like, oh, you don't mess with my friends. It's like, okay, I don't, it's one of those things, dude, that I don't knock him for it. Cause like you said, portraying Luffy is probably one of the most difficult things ever in terms of like an anime adaptation, but something about that didn't always hit for me. But
I get that. Hey, he's Oda approved at least, I guess. So that's good. The man himself.
So not to sidetrack us from talking about characters, but that has been one of the interesting things leading up to this show, is that while I've been pretty pessimistic about it publicly, people would always message me or tweet at me and say, but Oda is involved, so don't worry about it, And you can see that he definitely was involved. In fact, I heard that there were specific things that he demanded that he have creative control over and
Mhm.
certain changes. For example, he made it very clear that there was to be no romance between any crew members. Like
yeah.
that you absolutely cannot change that under any means.
Yeah.
And I also saw there was a clip with someone who worked on the show, I don't remember who, but saying that they needed to convince Oda about the inclusion of Garp and the reveal about Garp being his grandpa. That was something he originally was like, no, I don't think so. And then they convinced him of it. And now it's funny because that's kind of the main thing that people are annoyed with. But he definitely did seem to have a lot of, you can tell that like the things that they really adhered to, they super stuck to the background stories of all the characters.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to. Like, yeah, you cannot change their backstories at all. That would be horrible.
Yeah. So moving along, let's talk about Nami in this, who I thought was really great. She, some people I saw that the feedback from her is they felt like she wasn't like chaotic enough for Nami, but I don't know. I feel like you don't even really get a good sense of Nami's character in the first in this whole arc anyway, or in this season, just because for most of it, she's hiding this whole aspect of her life that she can't tell them about. So
I think that chaotic effect is kind of like what ties into Luffy and everyone, honestly, to an extent, is that these are manga and cartoon characters, and they could portray things like that differently and probably a little smoother than they would in live action. So I think they have to dial back some, like, you're not going to have, we haven't seen Nami like strangling Luffy yet, and he's like his neck stretching all over and shit like that. We haven't seen it, and she's like sharp teeth. Like, that's not going to happen.
How did you feel about when they changed the whole part where she leaves? She like is supposed to, I'm trying to remember exactly what happened in the anime, but there's the part where she leaves with the map and then they have to go get her, which I think they do that. They change like some element, right? With that?
Yeah, I think it's a little different. She like leaves on her own, I recall, from the manga.
Right. Oh yeah, because Arlong was never there. He was never at Sanji's restaurant.
So it was Stone Creek,
So yeah. Overall though, she was great. The other thing, I think, and this makes me super pleased because these are practically my two favorite characters from the show, but both Sanji and Zoro are probably the best characters in this whole show. Zoro in particular, when I initially saw him, something about, I don't know, his voice is very different from the anime, and that's fine. I wouldn't want him to be like mimicking the voice exactly, but the tone, the like total not giving a fuck attitude was like masterful. I felt like.
Yeah. Sometimes I thought he was a little too like about everything, just a little too fucking clown or some shit like that, like Batman the whole time, which is fine. It's it's not that big of a deal. I actually thought Sanji, the guy that played Sanji, I think was really good actually, especially portraying Sanji. You know, because Sanji, once again, super cartoony, like hearts in his eyes and stuff like that. This time around, he was just much more flirty, I should say.
Yeah,
less pervert, more flirty, and I think he did a good job conveying that.
Yeah, that was something Holly and I were discussing, and I thought they're going to have to tone down Sanji.
Oh, dude, he can't there can't be a blood loss storyline.
Exactly. That was something that we brought up that they're going to, if they get that far, they're going to have to drastically change an element of the plot just because I actually think it's a good thing because I don't know, this sounds weird. I don't want it to sound weird, but his perviness in the anime, because it's a cartoon, it doesn't make you hate him really. But I think it just would hit different in live action where you would think, I hate this guy because he's a total creep.
Yeah, you know? It would hit so much more different. Yeah. So yeah, the right call was just being flirty for him. Yeah,
dude. And he looked so when you see him fight right off the bat, when there's those guys in the restaurant that are going to fight. It's just like him doing the moves. He's doing the exact moves from the anime. Was really, really, really good. I was shocked.
It was good.
And then Usopp, who I remember before we saw anything, I thought, oh no, are they going to give Usopp the long nose. And that was a good change. It's a good change to not do that, just because.
Yeah, that wouldn't really work.
Yeah,
in the live action,
it would be too. And I think I watched a bunch of the like behind the scenes stuff that they put on YouTube. That they wanted to make the outfits and the way they looked very faithful without looking like cosplay.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the things. Is like, yeah, that was the right move for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought he was great. In fact, I actually felt like one of the things you and I talked about when I was first getting into One Piece was I wasn't keen on Usopp at all.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this guy's just kind of annoying, and I'm a little bummed he's part of the crew because I'm not going to like him. And you're like, don't worry, you'll learn to love him. Just take it easy for now. And I felt like the live action, not that it betrayed the character at all, but he just felt more likable right off the bat.
Oh yeah, he had more likability and charisma than normal Usopp did right off the bat.
Yeah,
there was something to like about this Usopp. Well,
and so let's get into some adaptation stuff now that we're on Usopp. Is that they took out the kids he hangs out with,
his crew,
and this was another decision that I think was actually probably the right one. That you have this like almost adult man who's hanging out with 12-year-olds, maybe younger, calling them his crew, running around terrorizing a village. Like, just probably for the better that they changed that part.
Yeah, and they probably didn't just even have time for all that. Like, even Syrup Village was 2 episodes on its own, which was like longer than a lot of them.
Yeah,
because there's a whole lot of crew in there, or cast.
So let's talk about Syrup Village with Kuro, right?
Yeah.
They really changed this part around. And again, I think that some of it's timing, some of it's budget related. But how did you feel about? I guess this was over 2 episodes that they did this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude. The biggest surprise to me is they actually fucking killed Mary.
Yeah, what the fuck?
And thrown at the bottom of the well. I was like, oh my god, you killed
I forgot about that.
You killed Mary. So now, I just forgot her name off the top of my head. The girl, her estate or whatever.
Yeah, Usopp's girl, whatever her name is.
She's like left alone now because in like the original one, she had Mary with her still, at least at the end, to caretake her. Dude,
yeah.
One of my biggest controversies of the show is the Going Mary itself. I do not like the head of it. I don't like that it's like smiling and shit, like with his mouth open. I think it looks terrifying. It shouldn't look like a real goat head. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It should look exactly how it looks in the anime and manga. Exactly how it should look. But they made it some freak devil Rob Zombies thing.
Yeah, I didn't like that really either, because that's one of those things that I understand there's certain things that you don't want to make look cartoony. Like, I actually think the decision to make the snails look realistic because they're a living thing in the world makes sense. You wouldn't want that to look cartoony.
Yeah.
Because that wouldn't fit. But it's a boat. It's not.
Yeah, exactly.
It's you could have made it look cartoony and it would have been fine.
Yeah, it would have been 100% fine.
Also, the way they put the orange trees in at the end was so fucking lame.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they got her like 3 little planters with trees in it instead of like the way it's like sat atop, the Mary. I just felt like that was really dumb.
Yeah. The fight with like Zoro and the 2 cat people made me laugh, dude. Just because like they're going, yeah, like the little knives and spinning around, dude.
Well,
just goofy.
Again, obviously the show is goofy and weird looking throughout, but the first time you see Kuro do his like phase thing where he moves real fast, I thought, oh no. Like,
oh boy.
Oh no. I get it, but also this looks a little weird. So
I think the guy that played him did a pretty good job though, as Kuro.
Yeah. Dude, when he would do the glasses thing.
Still, oh yeah.
Looked great.
Oh, yeah. He did he hit Zoro over the head with the bottle? Was that him? Or was that one of his goons?
I can't remember.
I don't know, but they should have killed Zoro. They just like assumed he was dead from taking a bottle hit in the head in the well.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it made it feel less important the way I this is a thing that I think was clearly budget, where instead of his entire crew showing up, he just kind of has his two mates there along with him. But I was disappointed because I thought, dude, where's the Michael Jackson guy?
The hypnotist guy? Or whatever?
The hypnotist guy. Which the funny thing about him is that he's not important, and he's not, well, as far as I've gotten, not important later, but he does come back later at the weirdest point where he shows up at a very important moment in the series. And you're like, why is this dude here?
Yeah.
And but that's one of the things that's so good to me about One Piece, and that's makes me sad, like I was saying earlier, is that having those, now that you didn't introduce the Michael Jackson guy, you can't have him weirdly show up in 3 years.
Yeah.
Or 4 years, whatever, how long it takes. So that was a little disappointing, but
I thought Baratier, the ship stuff though, all that stuff was pretty good. Like the interior of the ship and like that, and Zeph, all those characters. Sorry, I'm probably jumping ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
But I thought they handled that really well. Like a lot of the crew there, the chefs you like recognize. I'm like, oh yeah, that guy. I recognize a lot of stuff. And some of the encounters, like you said, Sanji like stopping that brawl right away. I was like, okay, boys, good work. Good work.
I was deeply concerned that when we first saw Sanji, I thought, oh no, are they going to not have him smoke at all?
Oh my God, that would have been a disaster.
I know. Which he does smoke, and he does smoke multiple times, but it's not. It's again, this is probably a good decision to not have him constantly be smoking.
Yeah, but he's smoking like all the time.
Yeah.
Dude, I thought they were gonna. Did he have a lollipop at one scene as like a joke? I can't remember. Maybe I'm just imagining something.
Yeah, I can't remember. But yeah, I thought that all of that, particularly was really good, and how they did do the part where it's like Luffy couldn't pay, and so he was well, they change it because in the anime he crashes into it, and he crashes into the head chef's office, and he has to like repair it or whatever. So I did like that there was still an element where Zoro, Nami, and Usopp are just waiting around because Luffy's paying off whatever kind of like debt he has to them, which was pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else. I guess we can get into Arlong Park specifically, if there's anything specific that we want to talk about from there. Is it Mumo, the big guy, the big Sea King that looks like a cow at the beginning?
Oh, right. Yes.
Again, that one I'm okay with, even though I'm a big fan of Mumo as a character. I think his name's Mumo, but
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Momu is it? Momu. I brought it up a second ago. But yeah, he's out. But that's okay because it's not necessary.
They only had the one Sea King at the flashback, I guess. That got Shanks' arm.
So as we get into Arlong, let's talk about this too. How do you feel about the fact that Buggy is dragged around through this whole season as well as a reoccurring character?
I guess it's okay because he does go away a lot in the manga, but they have like the chapter covers of him kind of showing what he's doing throughout the adventure, like him getting his body back, all that stuff. And I think Buggy was really good character. So it's like I'll just say anything that's different from the manga, I'm always like, already. But I'm like, okay. But his character is Buggy, and to me, that's how Buggy would act in that situation. So I was just like, whatever, it's fine. Especially because he just bails at the end.
Yeah. I just, I was unsure when there's the part that he's like interacting with Arlong and stuff like that.
Oh, wait, dude, I forgot because he shows up in Logtown. And that's not even that much further later. So he's just going to show up quickly. He'll just be back again. It's like, oh, hey, Buggy, just saw you 2 days ago. Something like that, but...
Yeah, that's in terms of the adaptation too, I think this makes sense, is that when they were writing it, they thought, okay, the anime, the manga, they're basing off the manga, not the anime, but it's all very episodic in, not that it's individual episodes, but it's like, okay, here we're going to be at this place and these things happen. And then we move on to the next place with the characters that we pick up. And then pretty much nothing that happens before matters anymore other than we have this person, right? For example, like they help Buggy, they help the mayor that looks like a poodle, and then that's it. Buggy's pretty much out until I think he shows up at Logtown. So, and then when they're at the next place, there's they're not picking up. They're not showing Garp throughout. They're not showing this like interweaved story, right, like having Arlong show up at the at Sanji's place and stuff like that. They really weaved it all together in a way that I think that probably they thought, oh, this will make it more palatable for a standard TV audience.
Yeah, totally. That's 100% what they did. Absolutely.
So in terms of the end here, I guess to talk about that, gotta say, I love the tease for next season with Smoker.
Smoker? Oh, yeah, always. Smoker's sick, so I'm really curious to see how they do that. And because when Smoker shows up, we get some more cool characters showing up. So I'm looking forward to seeing all that. And of course, when they get to the Grand Line, even just going up that. Oh, back to Nami's village. What did you think about the point of, so she was taking the money to buy back the village, but in the TV show, none of the villagers knew that. But in the manga, they all secretly knew that. And we're just putting up with it. And I think that just made it hit a little harder.
Yeah.
What'd you think of that? Were you just like, it doesn't matter?
Well, I honestly hadn't even thought about that element. There's a different aspect of that, though, that relates in that I saw someone post this on Twitter. I can't remember who, but I wasn't smart enough to realize this on my own, is that in the manga, Luffy isn't there when they get the entire backstory of Nami and the village. But he is there in the live action. So when he decides to help Nami, it hits different because in the anime or in the manga, he is just kind of blindly helping her, despite the fact that she totally betrayed him and left with stealing the map. So then he shows up and sees her upset, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to help you because you're my friend. There's no like, oh, you were dealt with this horrible situation. Everyone in your village dealt with this horrible situation. He doesn't know. And this connects to that. There was an interview. The actor's name, I don't know how to say his name. It's Anaki Godoy, I think. Maybe I'm saying that right. Or wrong. I don't know. In one of the interviews, he was talking about Luffy. He's like, I love the character of Luffy because he's courageous and he cares about his friends and he listens. And I was like, what? Like, dude, Luffy is not. That's the one thing. I'm not trying to be the dick that's like, you don't know what the character is, but that's the one thing, is that when someone is explaining an important backstory, or particularly later on, there are very important like political plots happening. And then you see literally he's like picking his nose or eating something and just does not care. And so in some sense, tying back to what we were saying before, it's one of those things that it doesn't really matter whether he knew or not, but it does like I said, it makes it hit different. And same thing with what you were saying about the village kind of knowing the whole time that she was doing that. It's like, just, a little different. Yeah,
just a little different, but still pretty effective. I appreciated the walk scene, where he puts the hat on Nami. Yeah. They had like kind of like a recreation of the panel from the manga, like how everyone was sitting. And I was like, okay, shout out on that, laying that out. Except it was nighttime in the show, but it worked fine.
Yeah.
But it didn't have that sick music though. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Let's talk about the music, because I saw that IGN was getting some shit because I think one of the things they said that had too much original music or something like that. And I understand why that, when you see like just that at the end of a review as one of the pluses or minuses, why that would sound silly, which is why having people not read the review and just putting a summary is silly in general. But I actually do kind of agree that they do include, they play the orchestrated version, the epic version of We Are when they're first going off on the merry. That was awesome, but it's like, man, I'm kind of missing. I would love to have heard like some really awesome versions of music from the anime,
Yeah. Dude, I was really hoping that they would just recreate the first anime intro with the same song, just live action though. I was hoping they would do something like that, but they got no balls.
The intro felt, I think, you mentioned about it being kind of Pirates of the Caribbean-esque, and that's how I felt when hearing the intro with like seeing the maps and stuff like that. Oh, I guess that's at the end when you see the maps, but it had definitely way more of a Pirates of the Caribbean approach. But dude, if they ever did recreate the intro with the live action crew, that would be
how sick would that be, dude?
Sick, dude. Yeah, for sure.
So awesome. But
oh yeah, good.
I was just gonna say, I just like whenever season 2 happens, when and if it happens, I just wonder how far it'll go, and like what they're gonna skip out on. Obviously, they're gonna have to have Chopper. I feel like gotta have Chopper.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or like, what will be the big cinematic finish? What will be the Arlong Park of that? Because I don't know if they'll be able to do all of Alabasta and stuff like that, because that's pretty long too.
Yeah, I was trying to think about what they could cut from Alabasta. Maybe. See, this is the thing, is I can't exactly remember what super important things happened when. Because there's the whole part where they're on the island with the two giants, right?
Yeah.
I thought, could they cut that down? Could they cut down? Because that's when you first see Mr. 3, right?
Yeah.
So you could maybe cut down that a little bit, but
one episode, half an episode, maybe.
Yeah. So,
because Chopper's got to be like what, 2?
You have to imagine, like that would
2. It has got to be 2 for Chopper at least.
Because you got to include, just like the other characters, you have to include all their backstory within one of the episodes and like flashbacks. So yeah, you would imagine that would be at least 2. I was even thinking long term, and again, we won't get into specifics, but I thought, could they do Skypiea and the next arc in one season? But I'm trying to, what's after Skypiea?
It's Ennis Lobby, isn't it?
Yeah, that's when they go right into Water 7.
Or sorry, Water 7. Yeah. And that's gonna be that's like a whole season, I feel like.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on there.
Dude, to do Water 7, just thinking about doing Water 7 into Inez Lobby, trying to do that in one season, like 8 episodes.
Yeah, that's a lot, dude.
That's the thing, is that they were able to pull off the, Romancing Dawn, East Blue in 8 episodes, I think, pretty well. But I think that the task only gets harder in terms of... So
more harder and more expensive, as I think about it. Like, dude, the Marine Forward War, it's like, okay, dude, you better shell out cash for that.
Well, dude, and that's the other thing, is that how are they gonna make it where they're gonna say, okay, the main cast is not in the show for almost an entire season? Is gonna be tough. So, but I hope that, I don't know, even though I said that at this point we have it's happening no matter what. So at this point I'm kind of down to see what they do next,
Oh yeah.
Like, I want to see Smoker, and I want to see them getting into the Grand Line. I think will be really cool. But
Balloon,
dude, yeah. There's so many. That's the thing about, especially as you get into this next section of One Piece, is that there's a lot of stuff that happens in between the major stuff that doesn't seem that important, and then ends up being very important later. So,
that's like the first season. It feels like they skipped over some of that. So how much will they skip over in the next one? Because it's like, I want those payoffs, because those payoffs are good, but I understand that it's probably not possible. Yeah.
Well, Brad, I feel like is there anything else you want to go over that we haven't talked about?
I guess just like overall thoughts is like, good job, pretty good, much better than I expected it to be, and I think that's impressive, especially a series like One Piece that's so beloved and so many people. Like even when I heard about this, I was like, this is gonna suck. What are they doing? Kind of thing like that. But it's like, hey, did a pretty good job. So hopefully the next season, if you get to do one, it's even better. Yeah, I'd love to see some of that stuff. And I'm really hoping, Dustin, that this just gets more people into the series.
Sure. Yeah.
Like who liked the live action or like, oh, maybe I'll check out the anime now or whatever, the manga now. That's what I'm hoping for.
It to open this up, I guess, to be about a little bit about One Piece overall is that I do hope this does get more people into One Piece. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I just wish they had an official One Piece Kai. That's not obviously I know about One Piece, but people,
oh yeah.
You got to seek that out. You got to download it. You got to watch it on. It's technically not legal to watch One Piece, so it's not just available for people.
Right.
And I know that too. I've not watched One Piece, but I know that there are. I don't want to say issues. It's incomplete. First of all, that there's major sections that aren't done, and it eventually will be. But I've heard things that people say, "Oh, they cut this out," and while it's not, doesn't seem important. It's sucks that it's not in there. I've heard of too many instances of that, where when people ask me about watching, I was like, I personally don't want to watch that.
Sure.
Maybe for a rewatch, One Piece would be awesome, but I've just been watching and then skipping the non-canon filler.
Oh yeah,
which is really easy to do if you just look on a website. But
yeah, that's probably the best way to do it. Definitely. Because you're in Dressrosa and some stuff can drag for sure in the anime.
This is probably the most it's dragged.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah, it drags, dude.
Overall, there are a couple points where it drags, but it's never not that long. I felt like in One Piece. This arc, though,
they're stretching it. They're milking it.
They're stretching it out quite a bit.
Oh yeah, big time.
But all right, Brad. Well, let's wrap it up here. Thanks for doing this. I'm glad we could just talk about it. I mean, even if we didn't post this anyway, just that you and I could.
Yeah, man. You're like the one person I can talk to, or one of my two. You and Kyle Bossman are the only people I can talk to about One Piece.
Oh yeah.
So it's nice being able to talk about it actually.
Yeah, dude. We should. It's too bad we could have done a trio or like dude. We'll do a whole. Let's do a whole One Piece podcast. One podcast episode. Yeah. Per episode of the anime. That's we can go over 1,000 episods. No
I don't
problem.
think he's even seen that live action one yet.
Didn't he say that he thought Skypiea was the best arc?
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
bruh. It's somehow like shocking and not surprising for what I know about him. So, but so this is it. And I feel lost for words because normally I have like a sign off spiel for a podcast, but this is just a YouTube video. So who knows? Maybe we'll definitely do this for sure, Brad. When I'm done with all of One Piece, we'll do this again, and we can totally open up the floodgates about all of One Piece.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there's certain things that. Well, actually, what usually happens is that something crazy will happen. I'll message you on Discord, and you'll be like, "Oh yeah, that was sick."
Yeah,
that's about it.
Yeah.
And there are certain...
I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't want to like say something or whatever, set expectations.
Yeah. Well, there's certain things too that there's questions I have that I just. That's the thing. That's getting back to one of the things I didn't like about the live action is that because I've seen how certain seeds were planted that I never expected to come back do. It has opened up like all these questions about, oh, could this happen? Could this happen? Does this mean this? And so there's been a couple times I've wanted to ask you, and I thought, no, there's no reason to because I wouldn't want you to answer. But I just like how
I can't say anything.
Yeah,
no
exactly.
Comment. I just like the check-ins and where I just ask you where you are and what's going on, and I won't say anything else. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
I just like to know.
Well, let's see, because I'm in 600 something right now. I gotta say, well, watching One Piece has hindered my ability to watch One Piece with the live action. So there was a few days that I wasn't watching the actual show, but it's harder right now because it's just a little, like you said, this part of the show is a little slow. So I don't necessarily always watch 2 episodes a day, which is making my progress slower. But yeah, maybe I would think less than a year from now we'll be able to have that conversation.
You've made fast progress for when you started. Really fast. I don't think it's even been a year since you started watching it, has it?
It's been over a year. Just by a little bit, though, I think.
Okay. Wow.
So, yeah, because I remember at Sacred 200, I was talking to Chris's co-host of the Snark Tank about One Piece because he was caught up. And I think I was telling him that we were in Alabasta. He was like, oh,
okay.
He's like, you got a lot.
Yeah, you got a lot.
Yeah, we did.
You got a lot.
All right, Brad. So if someone's made it to the end here, where can people find you? Just a quick shout out.
You can find me on Twitter at BradleyLS87. You can also find me at Easy Allies. We're over there making game stuff. You want to check us out. Good times as always. And yeah, that's about it. That's all the plugs I got.
I'm going to download your podcast from this past week so I can listen to it on the plane.
Oh, shit. Nice.
And was saving it. So
nice. Very nice.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. If you want to subscribe to this YouTube channel, and I will post something someday. We'll see. Let us know what you think, though, down in the comments. But don't post any crazy spoilers, not just for me, but for anybody. Just comment on the conversation itself. How about that? So, all right. Goodbye.